Welcome to Creators Cafe. I'm your host, Jessica Payne. I'm a performer, performance coach, and multi-hyphenate creator. I'm going to be bringing you conversations with some of my favorite creators where we talk about the sublime and the specifics of the creative journey. So grab a drink, get cozy. Let's go. My guest, Brandon Stansell, is a singer-songwriter. His music video for his single Hometown was the first LGBTQ-themed video to premiere on CMT, and he went on to be named one of Rolling Stone's 10 Best Country Videos of the Year. Brandon's first album, Hurt People, is a beautiful and heartbreakingly vulnerable look behind his family's response to him coming out. That album also serves as the soundtrack to the documentary named Three Chords and a Lie. There, Brandon revisits his Southern Baptist family as he prepares for his first show in his Tennessee hometown. His sophomore album, titled This Must Be the Place, stays true to his country roots and brings in upbeat pop influences. In his most recent project, you can see him star with his real-life boyfriend in That's What I Feel About You. Brandon is one of the strongest people I've ever met, and I mean that emotionally and physically. He's got a huge heart, and he's one of the strongest people in my gym. Please enjoy my raw and real conversation with the fantastic Brandon Stansell. Brandon Stansell, welcome to Creators Cafe.
Hi.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. Yay. And what are you drinking?
So I'm an iced Americano guy, and I have to say this might be the first time I've had an iced Americano in a hot coffee cup.
It's funny to do the opposite, right?
I appreciate that it looks a lot better than the cup it came in.
Yeah. I had a major spill once with one of the plastic cups, and so I was just like, let's keep it with the mugs. Yeah, and it's pretty.
No, but
it's nice.
How are you? This is the first time I've been to your space.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
But this is the first time we've actually sat down and
actually chatted.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Wild. It's
yeah.
crazy how you see someone in passing so often. You're like, oh, I know them, and then you get to talking to them, and they're like, I don't know you at all.
I didn't know that side of you at all. Yeah, it's crazy. I think that's one of the reasons I love doing this podcast is because there's people I've admired. It feels like from afar, but actually very close. We work out in the same space often. Yeah. I see you more than I see many people, but I don't get to talk to you in a deep way. So yeah. I love your work and I love what you do and I love your energy. And
Thank you.
I want to chat.
Yeah.
So I know you as a singer-songwriter. When you think about yourself as an artist, is that how you think of yourself or what do you kind of think of?
I had this conversation last night with my partner, and I told him I've worn many hats in entertainment throughout my entire life. I started started singing in church when I was a little kid, and then when I was 6, my parents used to take me up to Nashville, and I used to work for what used to be called Opryland Productions, but it was basically the Opryland Hotel, the Opryland theme park, which is they now turned into a shopping mall. Okay. Just sticking in my heart.
Yeah. Okay.
And anyway, but there were all of these shows that happened during the summer and Christmas time, and at the Opry House they used to do a big Easter show there, and that was the very first show that I ever did was at the Opry House. They would do the Easter show during the day, during the spring, and then they would flip the whole set and it would be the Grand Ole Opry at night. So I grew up in this kind of world of being on stage, singing, dancing, acting, and then watching this turnover into the home of country music kind of instilled this love of country in me. So that's kind of where I started, but I did it all. I was kind of into acting and musical theater and country music, and I kind of dipped my toe into all of these different things, which I feel like a lot of people do. When you're growing up, you just kind of want to do it all, see what you like the best.
Yeah.
And so I was a dancer for a long time, and then I kind of felt like I did everything I wanted to do in that space, and then finally started making music of my own. Writing was something that didn't come naturally to me at first. Even still, I think that there was always that saboteur in the back of my head that was like, you're not a writer.
Yeah.
Just because it was so hard to get going initially. I went to school at Belmont University for music business, but I threw myself into the creatives. Those were my friends. Those were the people that I liked to hang out with.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were writers, songwriters, singers, things like that. So I learned a lot, but it was being in Nashville and in and around those people. I always found it was really hard, especially with that like inner saboteur. It didn't matter how good a singer you were, how great a dancer you were, there was always someone better. Like, like if you've been to anything at Belmont, walking in there, you are like the star of your town. And then you're like, I am the most talented person this school has ever seen. And then people open their mouths to sing and you're like, or not.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty good preparation for going to New York or LA as a performer as well.
100%. But it was, so anyway, I kind of like clammed up a little bit in college. I really focused on, just getting through school, learn as much as I can. I did a couple of tours in college that were like hosting, dancing, singing, that sort of thing. But it wasn't until I actually moved to LA that I actually started writing music of my own.
Oh, wow.
One of my biggest, hang-ups was that I always felt like I didn't have anything to write about. And then I came out, and then I got my heart broken, and I was like, damn, I got things to write!
It's happened! Wow.
Someone give me a pen!
Wow.
But I was really lucky. Like I said, I went to school with all of these incredible songwriters.
Yeah.
So I kind of had people at my fingertips that they put me on basically a bike with training wheels on it, and they were like, okay. I'm sure they felt like the miracle worker. They're like, you can do it!
I will.
Yeah.
Water.
Yeah. But so they helped me. I had, a few core friends that helped me write my first EP, which is called Dear John, that came out a decade ago this year.
Congratulations.
Great. I wrote it a decade ago this year. I started writing it in 2014. It came out in February of 2015.
Wow.
Which is so crazy. So I was in the dead heat of working on it this time 10 years ago. And it was my very first thing that I'd ever done. And it was super scary, but really fun and liberating, and I look on that project now and I'm like, it's not the best music I've ever made. But I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that was the thing that kicked everything off, because it's that project will always be this thing that I look back on to be these things that I was writing about were very real, and they were I was so heartbroken at that point in my life, and I had been dating my first college boyfriend for 7 years, and we were not right for each other, and we broke up. He dumped me, but I just was so broken, and we were so tied together because we came out together, and I had a terrible coming out. He didn't have a great coming out, although his family was a lot more supportive. But we were just tethered. And it wasn't just a breakup. It was losing a sense of security. This thing that I had my family unit had broken down so much to nothing that he and his world were really all I had. Aside from really some really good friends that I had, but so that project will always be so special to me, because looking back on it, it's that was real.
Yeah.
That was I obviously don't feel that way anymore, but I'm so glad that I have that.
Yeah.
That's real. And then after that, I kind of had felt like I had, kind of the wind at my back, and pushed me right into, my next little project.
Wow. What inspired you to make the move from New York to LA?
Well, I hated New York.
Okay. That'll do it every time.
Do it every time.
Yeah.
You know what?
It is. I feel like people are either New York people or LA people.
I love to visit. And it's so fun now to that I know the city so well. And I really, really love that. But I was not happy in New York. And I think that I won't ever be able to put my finger on exactly why unless I lived there again. Which I don't have plans to, but who knows in this crazy world what'll ever happen. But I was in the throes of coming out. You know, I just moved from Nashville and everything was still very raw for me. And that was hard. I was dead ass broke and working a job that felt very thankless at the time. And that was hard for me. And I wasn't, for the first time in my life, doing anything creative. I was working a desk job, and I wasn't creating. I wasn't performing. I wasn't singing or doing anything. And I think those three things, coupled with the fact that New York is just hard in general, did not make for a great experience. And so that's kind of how I felt when I was there.
Yeah.
Then I moved out to LA, and like, you know, I think there's a lot that takes the pressure off of you, as, you know, just being able to like walk down the street and like not physically run into 1,000 people.
Yeah.
You know, that's nice.
It's easier.
It is easier.
It's easier. And you can like have space and have thoughts and have freedom of movement, especially if you grew up in the country. I grew up on a farm. The difference in just like physical and like psychological space is so much bigger here.
I remember like one of the first couple of weeks that I was here, walking down the street and like walking with my head up. And I was like, it felt weird.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I didn't do that in New York.
Yeah.
Like New York, head down, you're getting from point A to point B, like, and head up is, you are like, have the, like, maybe, like, possibility of having a confrontation with someone, like, I was just in a go mode in New York.
Yeah.
But here
you're not safe to like look up and look at people. It's not a good idea.
I was like, I mean, I had a guy like punch me in the face walking down 42nd Street because he thought I was following him. And you're like, okay.
Yep.
So it felt very different, but I'll say the thing that like kept me in LA, because there were a lot of things that I loved about LA, but I moved out here for my ex, and we weren't together more than like 3 months before we eventually broke up. So I knew that I wasn't going to move back to New York, but I had thought about moving back to Tennessee. And I joined this little CrossFit gym, and I just found this group of people that I just fell in love with.
Yeah.
And like just made LA feel like home.
Good.
And that's the reason I stayed.
Aww.
Was that I felt like for the first time that I had like started to develop a community of queer people and queer affirming people.
Yeah.
Like-minded people.
Yeah.
You know, that we all had this like common interest of fitness, and we were all doing like really gritty shit together. Yeah. And it was just fun. It was fun. And I think I hadn't felt that like sense of like community since I left the church.
Yeah.
Just that like crowd and like that common thread of like-mindedness.
In a place that you go that people know you and you know them and they support you, and it is like a community that lifts each other up.
And so that's why I stayed, and that's how we met.
Yeah.
And so
way to go, Brick.
I tell people all the time that you're gonna have to drag me away kicking and screaming to get me to leave LA. So I love it here.
Oh, good. Yeah. I love it here too. I'm glad you're here. This might be a weird question, but what does it feel like kind of coming into the Brick community, having grown up as a gay man in the country? Because I grew up in the country, and it was much more like these unspoken rules of where people belonged and what people did and things like that. And I wonder if that ever came up for you. I know we'll talk about it with your music, I'm sure, and socially, but I just wondered if that ever came up in the gym at all.
Not at all. I do understand what you're saying. But I think that by the time I made it out here, that I was used to living in New York, had kind of gotten me used to being around queer people and different kinds of queer people.
Yeah.
You know, like it kind of busted me out of, this is what a gay person is.
I think
and
that's
this is how
the
they
core
act.
of, yeah.
And this is what they're into.
Yeah.
And if you're gay, then you're probably into this too. It was kind of like that thing of being like, why do all gay men love Barbra Streisand? I don't know. But we do. No, but it was it was a thing where like, actually, no, that's not true. You know, like,
right.
So it was just like being around a lot more, like, being around a bunch of queer people, makes you realize that we're not all exactly the same.
Yeah, so, I think that's probably the heart of what I was trying to get to, is just that there's I think that you, with your music, you're an out country musician, which breaks so many stereotypes for so many people, that I love that you challenge that openly and make people kind of rethink what's possible and a path and everything.
That wasn't purposed. I think maybe if I had tried to do that, I had a conversation with an artist who was out to his friends, but not out, like, he was putting out his first records and he was asking for advice. And he was like, I want to make a big, I want this to be perfect. I want this to be a coming out thing. And I just, like, I've never really ascribed to that. Like, by the time that I was ready to make music, I had already lived so much trauma about my coming out and what it meant for me to be queer, for, like, my world, my life, and my family and the church I came from and all of that, when I finally, like, decided to, like, start writing about my life, the first thing I ever wrote was about my breakup with my boyfriend, and it was very honest, and, like, I talk about, I used, he pronouns and in the songs, and at that point, like, I even had, artist friends who were like, maybe you should, like, don't do that, and I'm like, well, it's my music, like,
yeah, so,
like, I never really cared. I had an artist who I look up to immensely when I was filming the music video for Slow Down, and he knew that I was in the desert with a male actor doing this thing, and he was like, I don't think you should do this. He was like, I appreciate that you are doing it, but, like, if you like insist on doing it, maybe you should, like, cut two different versions of the video, so where, like, one is like this one and the other one is like this one. And in my head, I'm sitting there going, I, first of all, would never pay for that.
Yeah. Yep.
Second of all, like, that's insane. Like, that's my stuff. Like, I'm going to do it the way that I want to.
Yeah.
And I think being an independent, self-funded artist, like, gives you the freedom to do that, because, like, people can have their opinions, but you can also tell them to fuck off.
Right. It's your life.
Which has all been very nice.
Yeah.
And, like, but it's, like, I think that there's, like, a good and bad with that. Like, I look at my catalog and there's nothing that I've ever put out that I would change, like, I'm so proud of it, but also, like, I'm not, like, the biggest country singer you've ever met. And so it's like, if I had been signed to a major label, if that had ever been an opportunity to, for me, I feel like I would have probably gone, and been able to have a bigger reach, a bigger fan base, a bigger, presence. But I think I would have lost a lot of myself along the way. So, my story is mine, and I'm really grateful for it. But I just there was never an inkling of me that ever wanted to, like, dilute or change or be anything than authentically me. And the things that I was writing and putting into the world.
Well, I think that's why your music's so powerful for me, is it just has that ring of truth. It has that, like, goosebumps that you get when you feel and hear authenticity paired with talent.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like just incredible.
There have been lines throughout the year. I mean, I remember, there's a obviously, like, I have a lot of music that has nothing to do with specifically about being queer, but I write a lot. I did write a lot about coming out. I wrote a whole EP about my experiences with my family, and they were not great. I remember they were just, like, some very specific moments. Writing Hometown, which was on the record before, was a song that got, like, put on the back burner for a long time, because I was like, well, this is just, like, personally mine, and I won't do that. And then I sang it at this So Far Sounds gig, and I had just signed with my manager, and he came to watch, and he was like, that's your next song. like, you have to do that song. So we cut that song, you know, and shot this incredible video that our friend Trent directed, and just like, I mean, just fucking killed it.
It's so good. When I was buying your Americano, I just listened to it to get in the mood yet again, and I was standing outside of Dialogue crying. Because it gets me like, every time.
Here's your coffee, man.
Like, are you okay? Are you okay? You should go.
But there was also, I used to write with the guy that produced my first record. His name's Eric Halbig. We wrote this song that was on the Hurt People record called Supposed to Be. And I remember he used to tell me that, like, writing with me was like sitting in a therapy session, and a session that he had no business being in. It's like you wandered into someone else's session. You're like, I don't think I belong. I don't go here.
Should I be hearing this? It's okay if you want.
But I mean, go. I remember coming up to that second verse, and there's a line that says, no, I don't know my sister's children, and I had so much love to give them. And he was like, oh, God, do you really want to write that? And I was like, yeah, I do. And so there have been, like, little moments like that where it's like, I think most people would throw out a line like that and be like, pull it back in. But it was just like, if I'm going to spend money and time and effort on creating something, it's going to be exactly what it's supposed to be. It's not going to be, like, you know, feathered, and it's not going to be, you know, curated or tucked in any way. It's just going to be what it is. And, like, a lot of those songs are just like, this sucks. Like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. And I think that's the record that most people gravitate towards, I think.
There's something really universal in the specifics of the pain that you are willing to go into.
Something I've constantly learned, more so recently, but it's been nice, is that for a long time I felt kind of alone on this island when it came to trauma and family and whatever. And I'm not. And I have been surprised by, you know, really close people that we've had conversations like this where, like, we've known each other, you know, in passing, or we've known each other and been friends where, you know, there have been instances where a friend of mine was like, oh, yeah, well, my brother in Texas. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't know you had a brother. Well, yeah, I don't ever speak to him anymore. You're like, oh. Yeah. Or, you know, I don't see my parents my choice. Like, oh. And, like, it's not all queer people. It's not, you know, it's a mix.
Yeah.
And I'm like, there are a lot of reasons why this fracture happens. And I don't know. It just made me feel like not so alone and not so, I don't know, like, black sheepish. Yeah. So I think that people gravitate to that music for a lot of reasons. And, you know, I wrote it from obviously my perspective and these experiences of coming out and being queer and that stuff. But, you know, when Hometown came out, the first person that came up to me is a writer friend of mine who is a straight white woman and was like, I should have written that song. That's my song. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, that's so crazy.
Yeah.
But she, you know, she had these experiences with her parents and family, and just breaking down and falling apart. And, you know, it just, I don't know. You just never know how it's going to hit people. And I think that's what's so great about music. You know, it's why, like, I feel so, like, proud of it and also just so inspired to do it. When I feel inspired, and we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But, you know, because it just transcends in ways you just never expect it to. And that's pretty incredible.
That's why I was crying outside of dialogue, getting your coffee.
Amazing. Yeah.
Are you ready to be confident and comfortable in front of a camera? Well, my name is Jessica Payne, and I would love to help you. I'm an actor, acting coach, and the host of the Creators Cafe video podcast. I have helped thousands of people to learn the skills of a Hollywood actor to be more comfortable in their body, voice, and mindset whenever you press record. So if you're an entrepreneur, a business person who needs to be in front of the camera, or you want to get into digital content creation, I would love to offer you one-on-one on-camera performance coaching so that you feel like when you press record, you can be your best self. Check out the link below for more details, and I can't wait to work with you. Let's have fun together. Okay, so with your story, like with hometown and with coming out and all of that, I guess kind of the headline here is when you came out, your family was not supportive of that.
That is being gracious.
Well, and I think you've been so wildly open and you're so kind that I think it's important to talk about this because you're both able to talk about it vulnerably and also kind of with a little space and grace, which I don't know that I would be able to have in your shoes. And so could you just like kind of give us the briefing of the story and then what came out of it with the song and then the documentary?
Yeah. It's been a long journey, and like anyone, you learn as you go. Mm-hmm. And there was no one telling me, how to do this or what was right or what was ever going to make me feel good or better or if anything at all was, and so I think the things that I've been most grateful for over the years were just like the inner voice, whatever that is. Like, I believe that I have no idea what happens to us when we eventually croak in this world, but I do believe that I've always had like some sort of old soul in me. And I remember when I came out at 22, there were just things that like my parents really wanted me to go to conversion therapy in the South. And, that was kind of like one of their stipulations that like if I was going to hang on to any sort of like real relationship with them, that was something that I had to do. And I just remember this voice inside of me saying, this is going to be hard, but that's going to make it harder. You're going to survive this, but you might not survive that. And so it was a thing where I, even at the very beginnings, had to look at these people that, I loved and say, I want a relationship with you because I love you, but I love myself too much to do that. And I think throughout the years, I've always kind of had that, whatever that is, that just little thing that's like, this is a good thing, or this is a bad thing. You should do this, or you shouldn't do that. And so, whether it was like putting out a song like Hometown, putting out a video like Hometown, where, I think it upset people. Like, my family was not happy that came out because it was representative of what actually happened, and that was their point of view. Mine was, all of those things did happen. They didn't happen sitting in a kitchen in one conversation. They happened across multiple conversations with multiple different people, and I condensed it into a 30-second intro to a song about this period in my life. That's art.
Yeah, right.
But it's based on truth.
Yeah.
And, that was not something that was taken very well.
Got it.
And that was kind of the genesis of this. But, like, I think that song kind of jump-started this, like, thread about using art as kind of a healing process and a way to kind of suss and figure things out for myself. And when it got time to do this documentary, it was presented to me as, we want you to like tell your story and, in this way. And I was making music. I had no desire to like, air my story in like in a space like this. But my friend Trent, our friend Trent, was like, I think that this is just another medium for you to like do what you do. And that is be a storyteller, tell your story, and do it through music. Just in a different way.
Okay.
And I got on board with doing it. My friend Leslie Jordan, who's passed away, was one of the producers on it, and he is from Chattanooga as well. So it just felt like we had this like, kind of. It just felt all the pieces felt like they were falling into place, and it was like what I wanted to do. And the documentary is called 3 Chords and a Lie. It's based on a Harlan Howard quote, who is a really well-known country writer who said that any good country song is just basically 3 chords and the truth. But like I've said for so many years, is that the truth, my truth, was that they didn't want to hear it. Was that it was they would admit that there are queer people and there are queer stories out there, but please God, don't tell them. And so to try to enter into a space like country music where on the face of it, people are celebrating the fact that like country music has this heart, it's this like soulful thing, unless you're queer. And we're going to need you to keep that in, And so it just always felt like this like very weird kind of backwards fucked up place to be in. That was very true. That kind of like line was very true with my own personal family, where it was like, we love you, but we want to support you and like, but, and like, you just don't do that with people that you love. And it was just a bunch of conflicting ideas and messages. And this was just kind of my way to kind of set my story straight and tell it from my lens. And there's this really, it's heartbreaking, like, interview with my mother, who the whole idea of the documentary is that, I went back to Chattanooga and played my hometown for the first time, and invited everyone. My thought was at the time was that if they could just come and just hear my soul, if they could just hear my perspective, my side of this, that could be like a jumpstart to bridging the gap that was growing and growing. And they interviewed my mom, who, just ruined the whole thing. My mother comes. She's the only one in my family that shows up. So she comes and she sits on the, little like brewery style, like small show. And she gets interviewed before, and, Trent is asking her like, do you have any regrets about the, this whole process of like Brandon coming out? And she was like, well, I regret that he doesn't have a relationship with his nieces and nephews. I know that they would love him, and like he would love them, and like I just feel like they're missing out. And then in that same breath, she's like, well, I don't want Brandon around my nieces, around my grandkids, because I don't want the queer lifestyle modeled around them. And I think it's like, just like a viewer, you're like, wait, like, but it was just like this perfect space of being like, that's where I was living for so long. And like, it makes you feel crazy. Yeah. Like, wait, you want me to be there, but you don't want me to be there. Or you want me to be there, but only like pieces of me. And like, I just got to a point where I needed to take care of myself more than anything. Like, more than trying to figure out this puzzle in front of me. And, it's really sad. Like, it's just a really sad documentary, and it's laced with all of the work from the Hurt People EP, but I'm grateful that I did it, because it really was kind of like important that I was like, that feeling of feeling just so crazy, because of the things that were being said to me, these mixed messages all the time. Whether it was that from my mother or, someone being like, oh, when I said I was sorry for the things I did, I wasn't really sorry. I just was sorry you got hurt, you're like, it just made me feel crazy for a long time. And I was just, it also just made me kind of stuck in that place.
Yes.
And I think doing that documentary was kind of like this flagpole in the ground moment where I was like, this is a thing that really happened, and it happened to me, and it happens to a lot of people, and it was real, and it hurt, and it sucked, and I'm going to tell my story, and then I'm going to fucking move on. And that was it. Like, and it was really, like, I'm really, really proud of it. So, yeah, it's, but it's, you know, it's not something I ever thought I would do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing it. It's just incredible to me how open and vulnerable you are with the deepest parts of your identity and with the things that, like you said, like, you know, when you broke up with your ex, you lost that one thing that you could hang on to. And so you're writing this from the other side of all of that, of having lost all of the most important things. And when I see you now, you have such a beautiful life. And I'm just I like couldn't be happier for someone to be happy.
There's, like I said, you learn a lot as you go along. And a couple of things that I have learned, one very recently. One, when I was I've been in therapy for a long time, obviously, it was needed. But my therapist told me, he said, like, because we would talk about trauma and all of these, like, anecdotes. And he just said to me one day, he was like, I believe that you have a gift of happiness. And no matter, like, what has happened to you, I believe that about you. Mm-hmm. Just having worked with him for as long as I had. And I was like, it was the first thing that I had really ever heard that I was like, you know, when some people are like, you're great, or you're this, you're like, like, I'm a Southerner, we don't know how to take compliments. Yeah. So I'm always like, thank you, but like, all right. Like, it's like not, it doesn't ever really sink in. Yeah. This might be the first thing as an adult that someone told me, and I was like, I actually think that's true. Wow. Like, I actually think that whatever that is, that it is true of me. Yeah. And that's always been really nice to, like, hold on to, is that, like, yeah, like, a lot of people go through, like, trauma and shit and that kind of stuff, and we all deal with it in our own ways. But, like, this is something, like, deep in me. Like, and I love that. Yeah. And then I had this experience recently where I was going into a therapy session, and I was kind of like writing out my intentions of, like, what I kind of wanted to get out of it or whatever. And I think when we think of therapy, we think of, like, oh, we're just going to hit all the dark spots and it's going to be traumatic and painful or whatever. And the whole, like, session ended up where my brain took me, where ended up talking about, like, these people in my life, whether it was my partner or my friends or my manager, or, you know, the people that I still am connected to in Tennessee, but just, like, very specific, big people in my life. Mm-hmm. And when it was over, I was surprised that, like, I had just spent this entire time just focused on these, like, you know, great, wonderful people that have, like, infused my life. And, like, when I was done, the picture that I had was, and maybe it's because I have cats living in my house for the first time, I don't know. But you know when you pick a cat up off the couch and they have, like, their, like, little, like, sometimes their nail gets caught. Yeah. And they're, like, hanging on to this thing. I had this, like, vision, and I was like, oh my God, like, this is me. Like, someone is trying to lift me up, and I've got this little nail, like, attached to these, like, really shitty people and things that have, like, that I allow to, like, take up space in my day and my brain and my feelings and emotions. And, like, instead of giving myself, like, turning my attention to these great, big, wonderful things in my life. I have great, big, wonderful things in my life. And yet I still let all of these very small things. They were not small at the time, but were a decade plus past.
But they're in the rearview mirror.
They're in the rearview mirror. And I still, at times, let them take up space where they just don't have any business being. And it was just like such a nice, it almost felt like just like a re-leveling of the ground.
I love that.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, yeah, that's so stupid. Why would I do that? And so that really has kind of like changed my perspective. And that's just been like in the last few months where it's like, you know, I've done a lot of healing. But like, I mean, we're never done, you know, and we're never done like growing and shifting and changing. But like that one was a big one where I was like, it just made me feel very grateful for the people in my life that bring goodness to my world. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of big, wonderful things and the people in your life, your most recent project and music video is with your current boyfriend. Can you talk about that?
Well, so I met this man like December of, not this past December, but the year before. And I just was crazy about him from the first night I met him. Like, that seems so stupid, and I didn't think that really happened, but like, he smiled at me and I was like, yeah, I'm in. Like in the first like few minutes, I just was just crazy about this man. So we dated for, we started dating, and he was coming out of like a long-term thing and was like not, I wanted to be like this, and he was like this.
But maybe.
No, but I just fell in love very quickly.
Yeah.
And so I wrote this song with my friends Sam Creighton and Will J, who are incredible writers here. They've co-written a bunch of my stuff off the last record. The first song we ever wrote together was the song Like Us on the Hurt People record, which is a lot of people's favorite of mine. But they're incredible, and I took this idea to them, and I was like, please, we got to write this thing. And I'm crazy about the song as much as I am about the boys. So,
and he's in it.
And he's in it, yeah. So when it came time to shoot the video, I was like, look, I can hire someone to play my boyfriend, but I'm going to have to make out with them. So this feels like a job for you.
Aww. And the video is so good. It's such a great music video. You've got a nice set of music videos that you've done throughout the years, some at the beach and some in Joshua Tree out in the desert. And so I love the look of the kind of span of your videos, but this one feels so personal and yet still has scale. Yeah. So it's really neat.
They did a great job, and we had fun. And this is the first video that my friend Trent did not direct. So Kevin Leondowski directed this thing. He's a friend of mine here, incredible director in LA. Yeah. He worked me like a dog. Like a dog, he worked me. I was so used to doing, I think I told you this, all of my video shoots were like 1-day shoots. And this was a 3-day shoot. And we were doing, there's this whole like beach scene at night, and I'm like laying down in the water, and these waves are crashing over me. And when they were like, you're going to lay down, I looked at the ocean, and it's just like seaweed. So it's not like beautiful water. I like came up the first pass, like came up out of the water looking like the creature from the Black Lagoon. Like it was crazy. And like they also just like anyone that tells you like filming a music video is fun is lying to your face. It's not fun. It is just grueling work. Yeah. Like they're like lay down in this like seaweed river and get up, and they're like, oh, and by the way, there are sand fleas out here that are as big as house cats. Like, but good luck.
And it's probably freezing.
Freezing to death. Yeah. So anyway, we shoot all this. It's late. We're hungry. And we're shooting it out in Malibu. So, it takes like an hour to get back to Hollywood. Yeah. And I was like, okay, this is it. Like, right, we're done. Like, this is cut. Like, we're like done with the shoot. And he was like, there's one shot I want to get of you guys on Hollywood Boulevard. And I was like, wait, what? And he was like, yeah. And he was like, I was like, how bad do we need that shot? And he was like, I want it. And I was like, oh my gosh. And we were in this Jeep, and we had to drive. So we had to drive all the way to Hollywood, drive down Hollywood Boulevard, which is also no fun.
Yes. These are not the things that you're necessarily doing in your free time.
No. Then I had to drop my partner off at our house, and then I had rented this Jeep from someone in like the valley. So I ended up taking it. It was just it was just crazy. He worked me like a dog.
Yeah.
But boy, we got a good video out of it. It
was so good.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So
and it's so wonderful to see the chemistry of the two of you too.
Yeah.
And just seeing you happy and joyful and
it's very easy with him. He's the polar opposite of me in so many ways. And this is kind of like a great transition to talk about because when I met him, I was like, oh my God, this man hates me because he's very quiet. He's very shy. Now, shy is not the right word. He's just like, when he knows you, he's obviously like very bubbly and lively, but like I thought he just like hated me initially.
He's just more reserved.
Yeah. And he's just a lot more, to himself.
Yeah.
But I love it. Like, I love the stillness. And like, I just never had that. And like, he just like, I think I bring a lot to a relationship, but I don't bring that.
Yeah.
I bring the heat and the heavy. Like, I do. Like, just a lot.
Yeah.
And he is just like cool water. And it's so nice. But what's so crazy is that he's also a creative. He's an incredible designer. He just made it. His cousin is in the new J-Lo movie, that's on Amazon right now. So he designed him this incredible like red carpet look. He's an incredible painter, and he since he's moved in late last year, he just like creates at night. Like he'll draw and stuff, and in a way that even I don't like. And it was kind of one of those things that I told you when we first got started that I'm kind of taking the next year and just taking a deep breath and not putting any pressure on myself to actually make anything. Because sometimes it can feel that way, and I've been doing it for 10 years. But one of the things I have most enjoyed over the past few months is watching him create things out of nothing.
Yeah.
And
that's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And juxtaposed to me not wanting to do that at all at this point in my life. And that's a temporary thing, but it's just like I can tell he feels inspired and there's like a drive in there. And I'm like, to create, to do the things that we want to do, you have to have that. And like when you don't feel that, take a breath, take a step out, and wait till it comes back to you.
Yeah.
And so you asked me if like I had a challenge for anyone listening to this, and I think that's it. Like, I haven't been doing it as much, but when I do, it really kind of helps clear the air. Is just doing a lot of free writing in the mornings. I'm a morning person, but in the mornings, because that's where I finally found the freedom to kind of like let myself do this. I think it's very easy to feel like if you're not doing the thing that you tell people you're doing, then you've given up.
Yes.
And that's just not true.
No.
And so I have given myself the space that I need to step back and say, I'm not going to make music this year, and that's okay.
And it's probably going to be so much better when you make it next. Yeah. And I think there's such a beautiful maturity of knowing that we need those rest cycles and, the ground to be fallow and kind of the wave to come back.
And so that's the challenge. It's like, I think as creatives, like it's in the name. Like if you're not creating, then what are you? And that's just not true. It's like there are like ebbs and flows to this. There have to be. Like we're not machines. We're not like automatons. Like you have to feel the urge to want to create. And so when I watch him at night and I just see him drawing because he wants to, not because anyone's pressuring him to, or he's got to meet a deadline, or people are expecting something of him, just because he wants to. It was just like one of the like key indicators that I was like, oh, that's not me right now.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a nice thing to like realize when you're like, I actually don't have an urge to create right now. And that's okay.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it. We're wrapping up. Where can people find you online?
BrandonStansell.com.
Okay.
There's things there that you probably want to know and everything you didn't. So a mixed bag.
I love it. And I'll link that in the show notes along with everybody else. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you.
You're the best.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yay.
For the perfect ending.
Join the community and share your creative challenges on Instagram and Facebook at Creators Cafe by Kika Labs. And also check out my website, kikalabs.com, KIKALABS.com, to sign up for the mailing list so you always know when a new podcast is released, and to check out my coaching and digital courses to help you be a more confident and joyful creator.